Have you ever wondered, why are there some men who only need to say a few words and women remember them forever? It's not because they're too handsome, it's not because they're rich or great at talking, but because they say exactly what she has never heard from anyone else. Not compliments about her eyes, her hair, or her smile, but a whisper, as if it touches the deepest place within her, the place even she is hiding. Women don't need to be complimented to know they're beautiful. They need to feel that someone truly sees them, not just with eyes, but with the heart. And the three things you're about to hear are not tactics, but doors. Once you open them, you won't just be remembered, you'll be unforgettable. Part 1. The mystery in a woman's soul. There are strange moments in human life. A glance, a sentence, a silence that lingers just 1 second longer is enough to change the way we see someone forever. And there are words, once spoken, not meant to be answered right away, but to be carried for days, months, or even a lifetime. I still remember the first time I saw a woman stunned by a compliment unlike any other. Not, "You're so beautiful." Not, "I love your hair." But a sentence without a clear subject, without any clear compliment, just a confession. Raw, human, that, "I don't know. There's something about you I can't quite figure out." She looked at me as if suddenly forgetting how to respond. No polite smile. No thanks, you're sweet. Just a gaze that lingered longer than usual and a quieter breath. Not because the words were clever, but because in a world where everyone tries to prove they know everything, understand everything, here was someone brave enough to admit he couldn't define what was happening between them, that something vague in his heart was being stirred, and he wasn't afraid to let it show. People are not drawn to perfection. They're drawn to what is unknown. The more intelligent and sensitive a woman is, the more she's bored by empty flattery. She's heard 100 people tell her she's beautiful, but only one person ever said, "There's something about you that confuses me." And that's the one she remembers. Not because the words were romantic, but because they were real, and they sparked a question even she couldn't answer right away. We live in a world where everything is labeled. People love to put tags on each other: kind, hot, introverted, bold. But love doesn't come from labels. It comes from the unknown. From something that can't be named, can't be touched, and because of that, the heart keeps wanting to return, to explore more. When you tell a woman you can't fully understand her, you're not showing weakness. You're letting her know you see a depth in her that even she hasn't explored. And strangely, that doesn't make her feel small. It makes her feel seen in a way few people are sensitive enough to notice. There was a time, at a small gathering, I sat across from a woman who was telling stories about her travels. She talked a lot, very lively, very open. Everyone praised her for being interesting, fun, full of energy. But I just stayed quiet, observing. Then, in a moment no one expected, I said, "I'm not sure why, but every time you tell a story there's something not happy, very slight, beneath the smiles." She froze, as if no one had ever said that. As if, for the first time, someone was listening not just with their ears, but with their heart. And in that moment, all her defenses fell. She no longer had to be the cheerful one. She was allowed to just be herself. That's when I realized, sometimes it only takes one person sensitive enough to say something incomplete, to reach the deepest part of another person. A woman can be attracted to many things: appearance, talent, humor. But what makes her stay is the feeling that a part of her is being gently uncovered, not rushed, not invaded, just slowly revealed bit by bit. The sentence, "There's something about you I can't quite figure out," isn't a trick. It's an invitation, a discreet way of saying, "You make me want to understand." You don't need to know what makes her special. You just need to give her the feeling that there is something special, and you want to be the one to discover it. That's a very human way of connecting. No tactics, no memorized scripts, just truth. And a little courage to admit that you don't know everything, and you're happy because of that. Because when a woman realizes you're not here to judge, not here to conquer, but to be curious, to look deeper, to truly listen, her heart opens. Not because you're impressive, but because you're real. And in a world full of people trying to appear knowledgeable, your not knowing becomes the most memorable thing. Sometimes attraction doesn't begin where we're similar, but from the very place we're different, in a way we can't explain. There's no formula for soul connection, only one truth. Emotions arise from things that can't be named. And when you have the courage to stand before a woman and say, "I can't fully understand you," you're creating a space where both of you can enter. Not to know each other, but to discover yourselves together. Because in the end, what moves people isn't being fully understood, but the feeling of being seen without being defined. Part 2. The one who sees what no one else does. We all have a part of ourselves that not everyone gets to see. A part that's not flashy, not easy to share, but holds the truest parts of us. It could be a sorrow that's never been named, a dream that was once forgotten, a wound long past that still leaves a trace in our eyes. Every person has such a hidden part, and women, in a world so used to viewing them through their surface, carry even more they want to keep for themselves. Not because they're afraid, but because they know not everyone is worthy of seeing that part. And then one day, amidst small talk, easy laughter, and bland conversations, there's a man who pauses, not to compliment, not to flirt, but simply to say something that seems ordinary. "I feel like there's a side of you that others haven't seen." It sounds gentle, but that sentence opens a door, not for him to enter, but for her to ask herself, "Am I really hiding something?" I once witnessed a strong woman fall apart, not because of any dramatic event, but because a man looked at her in a way no one ever had. She was the type of woman who was successful, capable, always cheerful in public. No one had ever seen her sad. No one had ever heard her speak of loneliness. Until the day he appeared. They had only met 3 times, and on that day they were sitting on a train headed to the suburbs, and it was raining. She was casually sharing stories about her childhood, about old dreams that never came true. He didn't say much. He just stared out the window for a while, then turned to her and said, "I think there's a part of you you don't show anyone, and maybe that's the most beautiful part." She didn't respond right away. She stayed silent, because a sentence like that cannot be answered with words alone. It needs a pause for someone to truly feel it. It needs a tremble for someone to open their heart. That day she didn't say anything more, but from that day on she began to share more. Not because he pushed, but because she felt safe. For the first time, someone looked at her not with infatuation, but with eyes deep enough to remain silent. Empathy isn't loud. It doesn't need flowery words. It shows up in the very moment you make someone feel seen, not their appearance, not the personality they try to project, but a part within them that has yet to be named. When you say there's a different version of her that others don't see, you're not just giving a compliment. You're creating a space, a safe zone, where she can be herself without effort. Women are strong because they were once weak. Women laugh a lot because they once cried in silence. And women hide their true selves because they've never met someone who made them believe that part was worthy of being cherished. If you are the first to see it, not with praise but with quiet presence, you won't just be someone passing through her life. You'll be someone she wants to stop for. Some relationships don't begin with romantic dates, but from a single sentence that makes someone's heart soften. Not out of sadness, but from being seen. Someone once told me, "I don't need anyone to fully understand me. Just one person. Just one. Sensitive enough not to be fooled by how I appear." And I believe that's a very human longing, to be seen beyond all the roles we've had to wear just to survive. The woman you meet today, she may seem confident, sharp, but what makes her remember you is not how skilled or attractive you are, but whether you are quiet enough to notice. There's a part of her no one has ever asked about. And that silent question, even if it doesn't demand an answer, becomes the reason she wants to open her heart. A little, then a little more. You don't need to fully understand women. That's impossible. But if you can make them feel that you want to understand, not to control, but to walk alongside, then you've reached a place few ever do. The sentence, "I see a side of you that others don't," doesn't carry possession. It carries humility, and also an invitation. If you're ready, I'd like to listen. I believe that the deepest connections are not created through fancy nights or expensive gifts, but through a quiet gaze, a simple sentence, and a heart that's truly present. Because in the end, what keeps people together is not perfect understanding, but the fact that among the countless others out there, they found someone willing to look deeper. Women don't need you to be a hero in their life story. They just need you to be the one patient enough to sit beside them when they finally take off the mask they've worn for too long. And if you're still there, unafraid, unhurried, then perhaps you've already traveled a long way into the soul of another person. And who knows, maybe when you begin to see the part others don't, you'll also start to see yourself with a bit more gentleness. Part 3. The moment that can't be classified. There are relationships that don't begin with a smile, nor end with a fight. They begin with a glance that has no name, and sometimes close with a question that has no answer. In matters of the heart, what we remember isn't the words spoken, but the feeling lived. The sense that, among millions of people, you once left someone confused. I once asked a friend, "What makes you unable to forget her, even after all these years?" He didn't hesitate, just answered, "Because when I was with her, I didn't know whether to keep my distance or take a step closer. She was both a mess and exactly what I needed." That very contradiction became a mark, an unclear, unsafe but real feeling. And that realness, though unexplainable, was deeper than any stable relationship he had afterward. There's a truth few dare to admit. We aren't always drawn to the best things, but to the ones we can't figure out. The woman who makes us curious isn't always the most beautiful, the gentlest, or the smartest. She's the one who makes us unsure. The one who, even after the conversation ends, leaves us with the feeling that we haven't fully understood her, haven't clearly defined her. The one we want to keep at arm's length, yet can't stop trying to understand. I don't know if you're trouble or exactly what I need. A line that may sound like a joke, but if said at the right time with the right feeling, can spark a connection unlike any other. Not because it's clever, but because it's real. Because it dares to voice a feeling we've all had, but never found the courage to express. In a world where women are often boxed into images, sweet, fierce, safe, seductive, a line like that makes them feel mysterious. And women love that feeling, not because they want control, but because they're tired of always being misunderstood or defined too soon. When you say you can't quite place her into a specific category, you're giving her space to just be herself, an imperfect human, still growing and therefore fully alive. I remember once meeting a woman at a literary event. She was sharp, her words as precise as blades, and to many she seemed arrogant. During our conversation, I didn't act impressed. But at a moment when she made a biting joke at someone's expense, I didn't react like the others. I just smiled slightly, tilted my head and said, "I don't know whether I should stay away from you or ask you a few more questions." She laughed. Not a victorious laugh, but one that slowed down. As if for the first time that day, someone hadn't backed down, but also hadn't pushed her away. And I knew right then the connection began. When you give someone the feeling that they're making you uncertain, not out of doubt but curiosity, you're placing them in a position no one has before, not as a conqueror, not as the conquered, but as someone creating a gray zone full of magnetism. Women aren't drawn to men who always know what they want, but to those who at times honestly don't, and still choose to stay and explore. That line, "I don't know if you're trouble or what I need," carries both risk and sincerity. It doesn't hide the fact that you're confused, but it also doesn't hide that you care. And the truth is, nothing makes a woman want to explore a man more than when she feels she's made him. Reconsider his worldview. Don't be afraid when you're unsure about someone. That in-between feeling, if you know how to use it, can be the most beautiful place to start a journey. Because in that space there's no pressure to be perfect. No need to win. Only the presence of two people, both wanting to know more about each other and willing to be affected by one another. Love doesn't need to be clear from the beginning. It needs to be honest. And a woman will choose the man who makes her feel not easily defined, but also impossible to ignore. When you make her wonder, why isn't he sure? What am I to him? You've created a space. And if you're smart enough not to fill that space too quickly, she'll be the one who finds her way into it. Bit by bit, step by step, with curiosity and a trembling heart. Perhaps the most magical thing in love is not finding someone who checks every box, but meeting someone who makes you wonder whether to be afraid or to hope. And if you're standing in front of a woman like that, don't rush to define the relationship. Let the question linger. Are you trouble, or are you what I need? And let time, sincerity, and the silence between you answer it for you. Conclusion. In the end, what keeps a woman around isn't looks, career, or rehearsed compliments. It's the feeling of being seen, not completely but truly. Not judged and not possessed. Just someone sensitive enough to notice. Behind the smile lies an untold story. Behind the strength lies a fragile part. Behind the mystery lies an invitation, quiet and sincere. When you compliment a woman in a way that makes her pause and think, you're not just making an impression, you're planting a question in her heart without an answer. And sometimes the things that remain unclear are the beginning of a connection that can't be explained by reason, only by emotion.